Nigeria's central bank says from January 9th next year, maximum cash withdrawals for individuals per week will be 100,000 naira and 500,000 naira for corporate organizations. Withdrawals above these figures will attract a 5% processing fee for individuals and a 10% processing fee for corporate organizations. In a circular issued by the CBN as part of the new Naira redesign policy, it was also stated that third-party checks above 50,000 will not be eligible for payment over the counter, while existing limits on 10 million Naira clearing checks remain. Customers will only be allowed to withdraw 100,000 Naira per week from automated teller machines with a maximum of 20,000 Naira withdrawal per day. Terms and conditions apply for withdrawals as high as 5 million for individuals and 10 million for corporate organizations. The latest directive by the CBN is in line with its cashless policy, while experts says it's all in a bid to reduce the amount of Naira in circulation. Dr. Bati.
Okay, well, I think it's important to put this in context. It will be recalled that on October 26, the Central Bank of Nigeria had announced that it was going to redesign the 200 naira, 500 naira, 1,000 naira notes, and that persons who have those denominations should take them to the banks, and that the deadline for doing so will be January 31st, 2023. What was the major explanation offered them by the governor of the Central Bank, Godwin Emefiele? He said, look, out of our 3.2 trillion naira in circulation, 2.7 trillion naira was outside the banking system. And if you have a total of 3.2 trillion, in circulation, and 2.7 was outside the banking system, that of course will create issues in terms of monetary management. And the objective of the Central Bank of Nigeria was to bring all of that money back into the system to ensure stability. Now, secondly, when on November, was it 23 or 26, the redesigned notes were unveiled by President Muhammadu Buhari, the CBN governor also gave a signal that, the Central Bank of Nigeria was in fact going to reduce the volume of money in circulation to promote the objective of a cashless economy and to also promote financial inclusion. Now, this third step has come as a follow-up to that, to further consolidate those monetary policy decisions by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Well, on the surface of it, yes, it's a good move because, no serious central bank will allow a situation whereby the bulk of the money in circulation is outside the system. So some of these policies are to ensure that. And one of the things they have said, where some of those measures may appear stringent to an ordinary man, you can't withdraw as an individual more than 100,000. If you're a company, you can't withdraw more than 500,000. If you insist on doing so, then charges will apply, 5%, 10% respectively. Now, if you have an ATM, you can't do more than 100,000 naira per week, not more than 20,000 naira per day. And then again, you can't get more than 200 naira notes if you decide to use the ATM. And then, of course, we are also told that, persons who are even using POS, they've been pegged at a maximum of 20,000 naira. So the CBN is taking a very aggressive stance in trying to achieve its own objectives. And the CBN is also telling the money deposit banks, the mortgage banks, and other financial institutions that, look, they have to be very strict with KYC, that more data will be required. The reporting, they are saying they will also have to do due diligence with reporting to the central bank. Years before now, the CBN governor had even said, yes, you will need to supply more data about your identity, about the purpose for which you are withdrawing money, about what you intend to do with the money. So all of these regulations are in place. Where does the CBN has it developed the corresponding capacity to be able to monitor this and to enforce its own guidelines? Although there was a threat in the intervention by the CBN to the effect that anybody that aids and abets the contravention of these latest guidelines will be sanctioned, where those sanctions have not been disclosed. I think in the spirit of transparency, those sanctions should be properly spelled out so that those who want to game the system, who want to be the system, who want to move ahead of the system, you will know what they are getting themselves into. The second point, however, is that, yes, it's good to say cashless economy, but is the system developed enough for this cashless economy? Network is always failing. I know a lot of people, not antediluvian characters like us who don't want to do electronic banking, but the people who do it, you know, oftentimes they tell you that, you know, the network is failing, they cannot do transfer, so there will be greater hardship for people, except to ensure that all the other, you know, related aspects are addressed. And the third point is that how about persons who rely on cash transactions, particularly small and you know, medium-scale enterprises, market women, petrol stations, who transact business only, you know, via cash, so they can't do more than 100,000 naira. Even third-party checks, we're being told that you can't get a third-party check over the counter, OTC it is called, if it is more than 50,000 naira. I guess there must be some accommodation for people who will still need some time to make the transition to this financial inclusion, this cashless economy, so that it doesn't look like what the CBN is doing is being dictatorial. And I think that the CBN also has to do a lot in terms of public, you know, conscientization, yes, and also, you know, in also carrying the banks along, because it's the banks, it's the tellers, the senior officials. CBN was saying there must be senior official approval in the banks, where some of those senior officials are never around. You know, they are busy going from one place to the other. But it's just to make sure, you know, that, you know, everything is in place. Otherwise, we'll get there. The other leg of the story that some papers are reporting today is that this is to prevent corruption during the general elections in February, March next year. If people don't have access to huge volumes of cash, then of course they won't go on election day and be bribing the electorate. Well, but other players within the system will also have to complement the efforts of the CBN, in addition to those other steps that we think that the CBN should take.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for laying that solid foundation for the conversation this morning, or the news this morning. Now, some of the things you touched on, just to expand on that, they say that this new policy will come into effect from the 9th of January 2023. 9th of January 2023. Now, what some people have said, you know, following what Dr. Abati has said, is that this doesn't give enough time for the sensitization of people in Nigeria. Don't forget that Nigeria has upwards of 42 million people living in rural areas who do not have access to banking facilities. Therefore, their main mode of transmitting or transaction is through cash. How do we reach these people before the 9th of January to ensure that they are well prepared to accommodate this new policy? In principle, it is great because, as Dr. Abati has highlighted and analyzed, we're trying to mop up the cash that's in circulation. However, in doing this, first of all, we had the redesign of the Naira notes, and now this new policy that's been released through a circular yesterday by the CBN. Things we must ask is, do we have the technological infrastructure to accommodate this new change? Unfortunately, the people that will be most affected by this will be the average Nigerian who transacts daily using money. Your market woman in the Atojo-Elegba market, or in Ketu, the people, your filling station, your attendants who still use money as a primary means of transaction. I was having a conversation this morning about the fact that there's still a distrust for a number of Nigerians on the use of electronic payment platforms, the alternative platforms that the CBN has put forward as channels that you can use to transact businesses. Number one is that we're still having POS failures. We're still having the issues around access to technology and data on network. There's still some areas that do not have strong network to back up these alternative channel platforms. How many of us still go to the supermarkets or the shops whereby payments are declined, not because we want to use cash, but we are compelled to use cash because we do not have the infrastructure to support this new initiative by the CBN. So what some analysts have recognized is that great initiative, but perhaps it's putting the cart before the horse, whereby certain measures should have been put in place first before introducing this policy. I can understand, based on the reports this morning, the CBN, the race to general elections 2023 and the policies to be put in place before the elections. However, you cannot continue to exclude people if you just had a massive financial inclusion conference to ensure that more Nigerians have access to financial services and are engaging the banks if we continue to introduce excluding policies such like this without enough information and enough infrastructure to support these initiatives. We still have issues around, around trying to get money, your money remitted once you've been debited wrongly by the bank. This hasn't been sorted. There's still concerns around security of online transactions. People still finding more confidence in going into the bank to transact over the counter. These issues haven't been sorted. Until they have been addressed, Nigerians might not feel comfortable enough, and it restricts a lot of businesses. What it also means is that when you go to a small business owner to transact and they're not able to provide these alternative channels, you end up walking away from the store. That's a loss of income for that business. So these are conversations that must be had and that we must talk about around this. We had, the president of the Association of the Micro Entrepreneurs of Nigeria, Prince Sunday, said that perhaps the CBN didn't consult with small business owners sufficiently before coming up with this policy. So again, as we've mentioned, good policy, but in principle, can it work? 9th of January, it will be implemented, and we'll see how this will affect Nigerians. But I do hope that in the days leading to the 9th of January, the CBN will tighten this policy so that it is more effective and Nigerians are not adversely affected. Moving on to the next story, presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Tinubu, yesterday in a pre-recorded interview with the British Broadcasting Corporation explained how he made his money, which he claimed was through real estate, adding that he would not deny his wealth. Tinubu, who spoke on wide-ranging issues, addressed insecurity and stated that the West was still not comfortable with the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, the reason they seemed not to be selling arms to his government. He, however, said he believed Buhari had done his best in the circumstance as the nation's president and therefore had no reason to run away from his record as a friend and leader. Tinubu, who said he could confidently defend Buhari's achievements in the era of insecurity, claimed that the current administration has degraded insurgency in the country from the overwhelming menace they used to be. Dr. Bate, we're still reeling from what happened at the Royal Institute of International Affairs, popularly referred to as Chatham House, where Asiwaju has been, a number of critics have come out to describe, some people have said it was a show of shame, some people said it was ingenious. Others have said that it was delegating responsibility. Following that, he had a pre-recorded interview with the BBC's Peter Okoche, an 8-minute interview. It would be great to hear your thoughts on some of the issues that he spoke to and the things that he didn't quite speak to.
Obviously, the dust is yet to settle on that Who Wants to Be a Millionaire show at Chatham House, staged by Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu of the All Progressives Congress, where he was calling helplines, he was calling a friend to come and answer questions. But, what I remember from all of it are the issues, again, that he talked about: security, agriculture, providing cutting-edge technology to promote growth and development, and also tackling insecurity, democratic consolidation in Nigeria, and then foreign policy, making sure that Nigeria, remains consistent in terms of sustaining a democratic regime, and reaching out to the international community on the foreign policy front, making foreign policy also a major priority for the country. Those are the issues. But he dropped the ball when it came to the time to respond to the questions. I think we dealt with that at great length yesterday. There are many, depending on where you stand, who thought, you know, I mean, it wasn't who wants to be a millionaire, where you call a friend or you delegate responsibility. When you are at a job interview, nobody goes to a job interview with surrogates to come and answer questions. Nigerians want a president who understands the issues, who has knowledge, who is capable. If he wants to delegate, let him get there first. There will be more than enough opportunities under the laws of Nigeria. However, to go to this pre-recorded interview, yes, I know Peter Okoche. We used to be together at Hints magazine in those early days when I wrote romance stories. First, I think it's not fair that people have been attacking him because on his Twitter handle, Peter Okoche was saying people have been attacking him, they've been abusing him. You know, this mob mentality that surrogate supporters of presidential candidates bring to the business, I think is condemnable. And everyone should know that under the laws, Electoral Act 2022, Section 92, Section 93, abusive behavior, threat of violence, harassing people, intimidating people for expressing their own opinion is not allowed. People have the right to make a choice. People have the right to ask questions. And I do not see what Peter Okoche did in that interview that, you know, is beyond his professional obligations. Now to the issues. What are the issues? Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu was reported to have said in that interview, and the interview has been uploaded online, as saying that he made his money from real estate and inherited real estate. And that it's not fair to ask him questions about how he made his money. Because if you invest, you expect profit. So he said it's from real estate. I imagine that in the days to come, there will be, you know, some nosy persons who will try to double check that.
Absolutely.
Who will try to fact check it. They will say, okay, before you became governor in 1999, okay, how many real estate investments did you have? So, but that's for the fact checkers. But at least that's what he said. Now, too, he claimed also that since he left the Lagos State government in 2007, he has not done any government contracts and he has not taken any appointment. Okay, nosy persons, we also ask questions. You have not taken any appointments. What of the son of this, the daughter of that, the wife of this, the wife of that have been given positions beyond the Peter Principle? Peter Principle means when people are promoted beyond their level of competence, who have been given strategic positions in Lagos State just because they have a godfather. So is it not that those people are taking appointments by proxy? If he says he has not taken any contracts, okay, will people say, well, is it possible that contracts were taken by proxy? There is a big issue in the UK now. A baroness, right? Mitchell Money, I think that's her name, you know, who has just stepped aside from the House of Lords because she was facilitating VIP contracts, COVID contracts for companies associated with her husband's, you know, trust and all of that. Okay, is it possible that we have had such cases here where the godfather has also provided opportunities for people? It may not be an issue in Nigeria, but elsewhere it's considered a misconduct, as you know, has been pointed out to that baroness in the United Kingdom. The third point that Asiwaju made is that it is envy, that people are envying him. Okay, well, I think it's okay for people to envy him because he's been a very lucky man. He's been governor, he's been godfather, he's been everything. There are probably some other persons who have not enjoyed those privileges, who also want to enjoy those privileges. And he says he's been attacked because he's a front runner. Well, that's to no issue. The principle there is voluntae non fit injuria. If you want to be president of Nigeria, yes, people must throw stones at you. People don't throw stones at people under the tree. They throw stones at people who are on top of the tree. That's why sometimes when people criticize, you know, you just take it in your stride. Okay, it's nothing to worry about. But if you want to stay at the bottom of the tree, nobody will even notice you. Nobody will worry about you. But if you want to climb the tree, yes, they will throw stones at you. How you handle it is the issue. Now he says he's different. He says, I'm different. I'm Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I have governed Lagos and I've built a modern state. Now, there are also persons, I think, that will take issues with that.
Yes.
There are some people who think it is not fair for Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu to keep saying, I built a modern state. I increased the IGR. I did this in Lagos. I have ensured continuity. Okay, so what did Mobolaji Johnson, what did he do in Lagos? The man who laid the foundation for Lagos State after his creation. There are persons who would say that, in fact, no other governor in Lagos State has been able to meet or match the record of Governor Lateef Jakonde, LKJ, in Lagos State. There are persons who will say, Marwa also did his own bit. General Buba Marwa, as governor of Lagos State. He not only did his own bit, he left a legacy of Keke Marwa in Lagos and Marwa Estate and a lot of contributions. Okay? And then, of course, there were others as well. There was Governor Mudashiru Lawal. And then there was, after Governor Tinubu, there were others. We had Governor Babatunde Raji Fashola. We had Governor Ambode. We have Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu. So where are those other people? If one man is claiming I beat Lagos State, so there are persons who can raise these questions. I'm just drawing attention. I don't want to appear to be too critical, but it is for the Nigerian people to decide. As Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu himself admitted, at the Chatham House, and that our responsibility as people and as government is to ensure the integrity of the electoral process. I rest my case. Absolutely.
First of all, I cannot but comment on the fact that you used to write romance stories for hints, Dr. Abati. I thought that was an interesting way.
I wrote for Hearts magazine.
Your repertoire is very wide and varied. Excellent. Now let's go on to the story in focus, which is the 8-minute interview that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu had with Peter Okoche of BBC Africa's Peter Okoche. That's the first criticism by a number of people and analysts who said, what is the penchant for foreign media? Asiwaju has been invited by local media in Nigeria a number of times to have town hall meetings, to speak to his electorate, and unfortunately he hasn't quite, he hasn't granted that request. However, we see him sitting down, first of all, sitting at Chatham House earlier in the day. I don't know when that interview was recorded, but at least it was released on the same day. And later on, we see him speaking to BBC Africa. What is the big deal with speaking with Nigerians? Why is it so difficult for Asiwaju to speak to Nigerians? That is what people are asking. That's the question. Why is it problematic? Why can't you speak to the electorate? Now, the people are saying, why is it important? He's speaking to people. But we must recall that the current president also came under similar criticism because at critical points in our country, we needed the president to speak to his people, and he didn't. Now, if you're courting us, and at this point you are refusing to speak to the people that you're courting, then what portends for us if you do become president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? These are the questions. So it's a bit of a slap on the face of Nigerians to see that if they want to listen to you speak, they'd have to turn on foreign media to hear you speak. That's the first one. The second one, of course, the issue around his how he made his wealth when he was asked the question, and he said don't be objective in asking the question. Simple things Nigerians are asking. You're going to become a public officer. Are you able to publish your assets and reassure the electorate that you're courting their votes that you are indeed transparent and trustworthy? This is very important. So the challenge we're putting to Asiwaju today is, show us by evidence. You said you were in real estate. What was your first investment? The Warren Buffett that you quote we can trace his investment back to when he was 11 years old and he invested in his first stock as City Shares. What was your first investment? Where are your real estate properties? Where are your assets? Can you declare your assets in the spirit of transparency and integrity? These are the things that would reassure Nigerians and inspire confidence in Nigerians that you are being honest and truthful with us. So we're not, yes, you've mentioned real estate, that's too vague an answer. We need a more definite answer. But that's all we can take at the time because our time is far short, but fast spent. But I'm sure that in the course of today's show, in the morning show, we will have more conversations around this.